look like we're having some technical difficulties, some little glitches, but it might look good on people's end, but for us, it look a little sketchy. So if you see me kind of pause a little bit, that's because I'm trying to make sure that y'all can see me. All right.
So the weather's bad, so everybody Wi-Fi kind of acting up. You know what I'm saying? There's a whole bunch of water in the ground because it's been raining for 2 days. So yeah, we all probably have a little bit of issues.
All right. So I'm Nikki Grant, Nikki Grant, co-host of Racing the Races. We are back on. So let me. Do you want to introduce yourself first, Sandra, or you want me to give the dates first?
No, give the dates for the election because we have a candidate here that's running for Group 4, City of Fort Lauderdale County Commission. We need to let the people know when they got to register and when they got to start voting. So go ahead with that information.
So I got to go into my pictures because you're not.
I thought you was ready. Because we always start with this, right?
While the commercial was playing, child, and I thought I had it keyed up and ready to go. But
there's a couple different ways to vote. Vote by mail ballots will be coming out soon, so you can vote by mail. There's going to be 2 weeks of early voting up until the election. I believe it starts somewhere like October the 20-something. It ends on November the 6th. You got it? Okay, go ahead.
So register. So election day is November 8th, right? Which is the very, very last day you can vote. That's the very last day you can vote. Early voting starts October 11th to the 24th. Nope. Take that back. The last day to register, your last day to register to vote is October 11th. Please do so now if you haven't done it. So last day to register is October 11th. Early voting starts October 24th and it runs through November 6th. October 24th and it runs through November 6th is early voting. The last day you can register to vote is October 11th. Election day is November 8th. And the last day for you to request your mail-in ballot is
October the 24th, which is the beginning of early voting. But the thing about it is during the early voting period, you can drop off your vote by mail ballot at any location. Correct. However, on election day, November the 8th, if you still have your vote by mail, you either have to vote in your precinct or you have to go to the SOE's office in downtown Fort Lauderdale or Lauderhill, or I think it's in Lauderhill, and drop it off there. You can't just drop it off at any location.
Right. Yeah. And that's October 28th, not the 24th. October 28th is the last day you can request your mail-in ballots. Okay.
All right.
We wanted to get that. That's important information. We got to get that out.
But if you do that, make sure you get it turned in.
All right.
All righty. Mike, introduce yourself. I'm Sandra Sheffer. They know who I am. This man got things to do. He got
like, share, and subscribe.
So he probably ain't knocking on doors, but he got to do some texting, phone calling, get his volunteer list together. So he has things to do. He's a busy man.
That's right. So like, share, and subscribe. Go ahead, Mike. Introduce yourself. Tell the people who you are.
All right, Nikki, Sandra, thank you all very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's funny you mentioned knocking on doors. I knocked on quite a few doors, probably more than 2,000 at this point. I've been at this for about 12 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. So it's funny, one day kind of goes into the next, it goes into the next. And, little do you know, now we're 5 weeks away from election day. And it's hard to believe that we've made it this far, this fast. So again, I appreciate being here, appreciate being on the show. And, I'm really excited to share, to share my campaign and to share what my objectives are and a little bit about myself to the voters out there and to everybody in the city. So once again, I'm Mike Lambrechts. I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm running because I believe that the city is ready for a fresh face. I believe the city is ready for somebody that can bring innovative ideas, somebody that can think outside the box. And I think that's I think especially where we are with the city right now, where we are with the times, I think that it's real important that we have, and we have somebody that can lean on technology. I've got the skills and the experience that are best suited for this position. Currently, pretty much my whole life, I've been a financial advisor. I own my own firm. I manage my clients' life savings for a living. So I think that somebody can trust me with, their life savings and with their retirement assets and their nest eggs. I know that our taxpayers can trust me with their tax dollars. So I was formerly on the Board of Adjustment for the city of Fort Lauderdale, and currently I'm able to sit on the Broward County Housing Authority on the audit committee. So I've taken my finance background and been able to apply that to, government, to government boards and so on and so forth, specifically with the audit committee. And I think that, what I've been able to provide and what I've learned from that experience and, continuing to serve in that position has been really valuable to me, and understanding what our challenges are, from a housing perspective in this community. And, and it's not only just in this community, but it's also a statewide issue. And frankly, it's a national issue. So, in addition to that, I've also been the vice president of the Coastal Conservation Association Florida. It's a 19,000 member organization that essentially serves to preserve, protect, and create our habitat for our Florida, for Florida's marine resources, protect our waterways. And specifically in the city of Fort Lauderdale, we have 165 miles of waterway. And I think a lot of people would agree with me that the waterways in Fort Lauderdale are the lifeblood of our city. I mean, they drive a huge economic tailwind to our city. It's, a multi-billion-dollar industry. It provides a ton of different jobs. And, it really is something that is massively important in our community. And not only just that, but also for recreational standpoint. So the health and the cleanliness of our waterways, and to keep them as vibrant with life as possible, has always been a priority of mine. And I put my experience on display there with several projects I've done with the organization. So I'm also the president of the Broward County chapter as well. And then I've led a couple of projects with the organization. I have one of the largest ongoing artificial reef projects right off our beach here in Fort Lauderdale. We've got our 4th phase coming next Tuesday, actually. So we'll have deployed about 1.5 million pounds of concrete to create habitat for marine life, as well as to foster coral development in an area on the seafloor that otherwise, just has sand. So I can speak all day and all night about this issue, so I don't want to put anybody to sleep on it, but it's something that's near and dear to my heart. It always has been. And in addition to that, I was part of Leadership Broward Class 37 as well. And I co-founded a technology startup to actually clean our city's waterways as well. And we did a pilot with the city to clean the Himmershey Canal. And we pulled 7,000 gallons of a concentrated, what's called skimmate, or a sludge essentially, from that canal. So, and that was only in 3 months. So we did a lot of work on that canal. I'm running this race to address this city's most critical challenges. And I feel that those challenges are housing affordability and the cost of living, certainly infrastructure like sewer, water, and flood. And, no pun on the flood. We all kind of see what's going on today. I mean, the Kinney Tunnel was closed because it was flooded, had to redirect traffic. It's been kind of a mess downtown here. So, I think that these issues really come to the forefront of what our challenges are in this city. With king tides flooding a lot of coastal areas, you combine that with all this rain that we've had, it's really created a big problem. Especially downtown and a lot of areas that are further toward the coast. I'm also looking to address traffic strategies, and that's not just something to say that as boilerplate language. I actually have some thoughts and some ideas and some strategies I think that we can that are, I would call, low-hanging fruit that other communities, other cities have done. I think that we can emulate. And then, as I mentioned before, I'm the candidate that's going to have the solutions when it comes to 165 miles of waterway. And, look, we're not going to fix the challenges that we have with the ecology of our waters overnight. But, given the position I've had in this organization and the work I've done, I definitely have the resources, the knowledge, and the understanding, especially as a boater and a fisherman my whole life, to provide valuable experience to foster the health of our waterways.
Okay. So, I know we don't want you to necessarily tell all your game plans. So the next time you're on the panel, the other candidates don't take your ideas on what it is that you want to do. But one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about was the flooding. Sure. I live in a community out west, and we had some issues with flooding like a couple years ago. And all of a sudden they got together and they was like, we got to do something about this drainage, right? Because They were like, our issue was drainage. They put in a whole drainage system. They actually had a a city town hall meeting where they told us about all of what they did. I'm sure I don't think I got a little bit of sense, but I understand half of what they were talking about. But what I do know was the outcome was the next time we had like a big rain, it wasn't water all over the place, right? So you were just talking about how like in downtown Fort Lauderdale today, there's flooding and they had to, reroute like some neighborhoods. What is it that you're going to do, not just for the District 4 in Fort Lauderdale, but just the city of Fort Lauderdale in and of itself to address the flooding issue there, and what can be done?
So those are the critical infrastructure issues that I mentioned before. And so, for example, I live in Edgewood, which is on the western part of the district. So we are currently undergoing I believe it's a $25 million infrastructure upgrade to our stormwater system. So our roads have been, for better or worse, have been really, really, torn up to install this infrastructure. And so we're really dealing with challenges there from logistics and from the, essentially just from the quality of the roads. But I'll tell you, when I went door knocking and I knocked on doors in those neighborhoods, that seemed to be one of the largest concerns in that neighborhood. And although the project's not going to be done until roughly September of 2024, look, we've got to deal with the pain to get the gain. And so these pains are, us having to deal with these inconveniences for a little while. And so, it's well worth it. But to answer your question, I think that this is a good example of the things that we need to be doing and the investments we need to be making in this city. And a big premise of my campaign, being somebody who's born and raised here, is that I feel that we need to reinvest in our own city. I know that the city's grown quite a bit. We're continuing to grow, but I think it's important that we look at what we're doing with our budget and be as fiscally responsible as we possibly can when it comes to doing our budgeting, and be able to direct as many resources as we can to do projects just like the ones that are happening, or just like the one, I should say, that is happening in my neighborhood, so we can alleviate the areas of the city that are the most flood prone. And I think that just comes down to prioritizing where these problem areas are, which the city's done. And then secondly is just appropriating and allocating the money in the proper ways. But, these projects are critical. They tie into also what we're doing with the water when it drains. And so the city created a stormwater preserve called the River Oaks Stormwater Preserve. And a lot of the drainage out west where I live, I should say on the western side of the district, is draining into this stormwater preserve, which is essentially a watershed type natural area, which gives the water an ability to be filtered before it ultimately enters the new river. And then ultimately after that some of it will end up in the ocean as well. And so that's more of a natural type of solution to cleaning runoff and water that comes from the streets, which is full of oil, it's full of heavy metals, it's full of things that shouldn't be in our natural, in our ecosystem. A long story short, it's just prioritizing the money, prioritizing the budget, and prioritizing the neighborhoods that need it most. And I think that the city is working on that right now. We've got to keep that momentum going as quick as we can.
Okay, so you talked about the infrastructure, and I know that there was an infrastructure bill that came from the federal government, and Florida. We don't want to get too much into Florida politics. I ain't trying to call nobody out or anything like that. But was some of the money that your area is using, did it come from that infrastructure bill, or was that something that was already in place? And do you think our state would benefit from some of the money that the federal government had allocated to upgrade the infrastructure in the state?
That's a good question. I don't believe that the funds that came for this project were specifically from the federal earmarked infrastructure dollars, but I do know that the city officials just went to Washington to talk about things like this, right? And so forming relationships so we can get some of those dollars locally here, not only get them into the state, but get them also locally here to Broward County, get them into the city of Fort Lauderdale. It was a great bill that really needed to be passed. The whole country really is way behind in infrastructure. It's not a unique issue to Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. It's not a unique issue to the state of Florida. And like I said, it's not a unique issue necessarily to the rest of the country. So we definitely need to not only work with the county and work with the state, but also look to grab as much of these infrastructure dollars as possible while they're available. And I do know that the city is currently working on that, and I'd like to continue looking at ways that we can access those dollars. And so there's several projects I think that that they can access those assets on. They've been talking about doing a bridge, for the commuter rail system that goes through the city, or doing a tunnel instead of the bridge, not to be confused with the Musk Tunnel, but the for the commuter rail. So, that's been a hot topic in our district and in the city of Fort Lauderdale, really, as far as what we want to do. But I think that there's federal dollars that can come from that as well. And that trickles down to the county and as well, to the state. So it is important that we utilize as much of those and we get as much of those infrastructure dollars as possible, because, like I said, we really could use them.
Yeah, I agree.
So, how is Fort Lauderdale, the city of Fort Lauderdale, doing with the housing crisis? I know that we are. That's one of the top things you mentioned. And as you can see, the inflation is horrific.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things Fort Lauderdale is doing, and what would you continue on if you are to be elected for District 4 to help enhance? Because I think this is, for me, I see that this is going to be a long-term issue.
Yep.
So what are some of the things that you're thinking about? What is your city doing, and what do you think that you can do to enhance that?
So with the city right now, what they're doing when it comes to new development, they have incentives or zoning incentives, I should say, when it comes to development, and it's essentially trading these incentives for these projects to include workforce housing. And so the city of Fort Lauderdale also has an affordable housing trust fund. And I know that fund has also been utilized as part of an incentive for several different projects for them to invest in this fund, so the city can allocate resources to building more affordable and workforce housing. So as I mentioned before, I sit on the audit committee for the Broward County Housing Authority. It's a $120 million organization. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, housing authority in the state of Florida. And what's crazy is, for a budget that big, there's still so many applicants that the authority can't serve. They just can't physically serve. And so there's, I would say, roughly about 2,500 applicants that we just don't have anywhere that we can put them right now. And so the struggle is with at least from my experience and from what I know with Broward County Housing Authority. I don't want to speak for the Fort Lauderdale Housing Authority, but I would imagine that their challenges are probably similar. And you mentioned inflation, is the cost of building, the cost of construction alone has just shot through the roof. And so it's put the brakes on projects that have just become unaffordable now to do. And it's a huge concern because, like I said, as a financial advisor, these are conversations I have every day with my clients, and you're looking at an 8% CPI that just doesn't seem to want to break. And, we've got the Fed that's raising interest rates. And, I just saw, not 10 minutes, 20 minutes ago, that the 30-year mortgage is now over 7%. So it's not really, at least right now, becoming any more affordable to purchase a home. I know that the city, like I said, is using some incentives to try to get more units for workforce, for affordable housing units from some of these developments. I think the city is now taking a better approach with utilizing some revenue streams from development projects to invest in the trust fund. So I would like to continue doing that. I would like to be even more stringent on developers and make better deals for the city if we can, on being able to allocate more dollars to these resources. And like I said, it's something I'm passionate about because I'm involved in it through the Housing Authority. It's something that I know we need. And as a business person, the city definitely needs to do as much as possible to provide housing and help with the cost of living in this city. And so, a lot of people are very against development. They're very concerned with the rate of development, and it's very understandable, but it's also a supply issue too. So I'm not saying that we need to go vertical and go crazy out of the ground and build skyscrapers everywhere. But it's also important that we're adding units and the right type of units as well, so we can get inventory up and ultimately should provide some tailwinds for the cost of housing down the road. But it's certainly a big challenge, but it's one that I'm excited to tackle because it's definitely something I can utilize my skill set for.
So quickly, so for those who don't know what the housing authority is or does, can you just explain that just a little bit?
So the housing authority essentially represents more or less it takes dollars and subsidies from HUD, from the house, from a federal program that essentially is able to help subsidize housing for people who qualify, right? And so the housing authority is just basically an entity that provides housing for people that normally otherwise can't afford it or do not, necessarily make enough income to be able to afford it. So you have to qualify for it. They don't just give it to you. You have to be, you have to fit the right criteria. But the other nice thing about the housing authority is they also establish an organization to provide education on, and to provide resources for first-time home buyers, to provide education on financial literacy, so there's a lot of different aspects to the organization, which really do a lot of great things for people and give them a lot of resources that they may not have otherwise have had.
Okay.
Just
but go ahead.
So the housing authority, is it part of the Broward Housing Council? Are those two different entities?
I believe two different entities. It's a county. So Fort Lauderdale has the Fort Lauderdale Housing Authority, which is associated directly with the city, and then the county has their own. And so, more or less each county around the state has their own housing authority that's strictly a county program.
Right, because I had received an email from the Broward Housing Council, I think it was, and and in that they mentioned that 94% of Broward County residents cannot afford housing that is with the medium housing that they say it starts at $560,000. 94% in Broward County.
Yeah, I attended a housing summit earlier this year, which Broward County Housing Authority was one of the participants, and I'm glad you mentioned that number because that number, my jaw hit the ground when I heard that. I mean, you're looking over $500,000 in a median price, and it's like, if you think, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, what $500,000 would have bought you versus what it gets you now. And what's even crazier is the limit for a conventional loan is now over $700,000. I mean, it went up by almost $150,000 in the last year and a half. I mean, and that's a recognition by the lending, by the lenders that, this is where we have to be now. And it's not like, you look at how fast that housing prices and rents have increased. I mean, we're talking 20% year over year. Wages haven't gone up by that much.
Nope, not even close.
Not even close.
Not even close.
So it's a huge issue. I mean, this is a huge issue, and it's not just a huge issue in District 4, but it's a big issue across the city. It doesn't matter what district you're in. This is a citywide issue. It's a countywide issue. It's a statewide issue. And frankly, it's a national issue in a lot of places as well. So, it's interesting because the city of Fort Lauderdale now, we've got a new water plant on the way. This has been a pretty contentious type of project. And, some people argue that, well, we should have rebuilt the existing water plant, the 5-ash water plant. Other people have said, we need a new one. I think arguments can be made for both sides. I think that if, anybody that went to the water plant and looked at it would probably realize I should say, that it probably needs to be scrapped. But there's just, that's a $500 million project. I mean, there was just another $100 million that was tacked onto that in a 3-month period of time. And they cite building materials and labor and so on and so forth, and how much more. So that's going to cost our taxpayers now another $100 million. So when we're looking at, housing costs, rents, the price of purchasing a home, put that aside for this topic, because now we're looking at utility bills going up, and they're not cheap as it is.
Yep.
So now we're looking at those going up, and we've got some serious challenges. And I think the city's really got to take a deep look at how we're allocating money, and we've got to look at ways that we've got to give back. Now, here's another topic, more state level, the Sadowski Fund. So the Sadowski Fund, it's my understanding the Sadowski Fund, essentially is maybe about a third of it has been utilized. So we're way underutilizing all the assets that are in the Sadowski Fund. So the state needs to open up that fund and direct some of that money, to essentially to its constituents and to these, to these housing authorities or to these, to these cities, to these municipalities to help us out with this. I mean, that it's a significant amount of money that needs to be released and allocated. And you know what? There's no better time than now to get that going. So that's something I want to work with the state on.
From your lips to God's ears.
Well, we've had some people that come on and talked about how they're misusing the Sadowski Fund. Right. So
I'm just saying, from his lips to God's ears.
Help the people, like however you got to help them. But I know there's been some concern that they're like, yes, they're not using the fund in the ways that it was intended. But if the recommendations you're making is for it to assist people that's in the state, whatever that looks like, as long as it's helping people, we're all here for it. We're absolutely all here for
it. The state has boasted about, having the strongest budget, right, that it's ever had. And I think it's time to give some money back to the taxpayers as much as we can. Now, granted, we don't have a state income tax, but there's plenty of other ways that our taxpayers are hooking the state up, with resources. So I think it's time. I think it's time we look to the state to try to start giving some back to us because, ultimately that's taxpayers' money.
Absolutely. You told
me.
Agree.
No disagreement here. But I do have a question when you're talking about building, right? And then because you also said one of the things you want to do is about traffic strategies. I had interviewed a candidate out of Plantation, and that's one of those cities where they ain't got no more space to build nothing, right? It ain't no more land. There's no more building. So if they're going to build, it has to go up. And their concern about building up was that it's going to increase traffic. And then you got to, the sewer, sewer, like the toilet system or whatever, you got to deal with all of these infrastructure stuff. And so you were saying that about Fort Lauderdale, and a lot of people are trying to go into downtown because if that's where the job is, they want to live there because it's the public transportation here sucks. And if your rent is going up, you may have to give up your car and insurance in order for you to do that. So you have to find ways to cut costs. So what are some of these parking strategies that you're talking about? And what, do we really have space? Well, I know the country's not full, but can we really afford to continue to build and just really populate some of these more desirable cities just because of their location to like places to work and things like that?
It's a double-edged sword. I think it goes back to the supply issue. We've got, here's the reality of it. We can't tell people that they can't come to Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. We can't tell people they can't come to Florida. We can't open up the bridges and close down the exits and say, hey, you're not allowed to come here, right?
We're done. No more.
I think that, I think that there's a glass half full and a glass half empty approach that we could look at this at the growth and at development with. And so, from the growth side, there's the opportunity to create jobs. The city just signed off on a deal to bring a Hollywood movie studio here to Fort Lauderdale. And so my understanding is, what I've heard is that the minimum, the minimum wage, there, or I should say the minimum salary for somebody that's a tradesman or somebody that, just going to work on set with, doesn't have to have like Hollywood movie skills, is going to be $100,000. Mm-hmm. So the city in one respect is bringing, I think, some really good jobs in different industries, to this community, which I think is really important. On the other hand, it's at the expense of, more people coming here and then figuring out how are we going to deal with where are we going to put them? And that's a supply issue, which has also contributed to the rise in rentals and home prices as well. So, that's the thing is like, okay, well, where do you put them? So I think that development is not necessarily something that we can or should stop, but it is something that I think that we do need to be a lot more careful and discerning with. And when we're doing deals with developers and we're doing any projects, we need to focus on what kind of project we're doing, how it conforms to that, to that neighborhood or that community, what benefits is that the city of Fort Lauderdale able to get from it beyond impact fees? And what's the impact on traffic going to be? And what's the developer going to do to help, to perhaps help design these projects to where it can mitigate traffic? And now on the traffic piece, Los Angeles is a great example of a city that has utilized all sorts of different technology in their intersections. And so currently the city is working on installing a system called the Intelligent Transportation System. And so what that is essentially equipment that is going to be installed at many or all of intersections in the city of Fort Lauderdale. And then that equipment essentially is able to record data and then relay that data to the county. And then the county can ultimately synchronize these traffic lights with that system. So that's something that's in process. The city said that should be installed by the end of the year. I think we got to take it a step further. I think with the ability with Wi-Fi and AI now, which is what LA is doing, they are creating smart intersections utilizing these technologies to help with traffic flow. And I think that we've got to look at communities and look at what, cities like LA is doing. And, they're probably one of the worst cities in the world for traffic.
It is.
And look, we're not going to take the cars off the road. I think with as the city develops, I think with the proper, with proper urban planning, I think ultimately the city would love to get to a point where the downtown area, where you could ride your bike, you could walk, you could take a scooter, public transportation, where you don't need a car, you don't have to have a car. And ultimately, maybe that would eliminate some of the, I would say, I wouldn't say eliminate, but maybe mitigate some of these traffic, congestion issues. But, to take it a step further, the other thing is too, we're talking about a Tesla tunnel. Okay. So that's been a big, big contentious subject amongst people in the city. This Tesla tunnel, are we, we're going to pay, or we're looking at $150 million to take a tunnel, to run a tunnel under Las Olas to the beach, and then have Teslas in it where we're going to ride in these Teslas to the beach. I'm not against looking at new technology.
Unmanned Tesla, like the self-driving Tesla?
They're going to start manned, but the goal is that they are going to end up being unmanned and fully autonomous at some point.
Oh.
So here's the thing with this. I'm not against this idea. I'm not against the technology whatsoever. What I don't think makes sense is I don't think that that's going to help solve an issue or that it should be a priority right now. And so I think something like that we could look at doing, and maybe integrating communities out west to where folks can park out west and take a tunnel more or less to downtown. Let's make it easy to get into downtown. Don't deal with the traffic. Maybe all you got to do is drive to a parking lot, somewhere in Plantation or Davie or wherever it is. And ultimately, maybe you end up with an integrated tunnel system, down the line. I mean, this isn't a tomorrow or today thing, but, down the line. But I think if we're able to use this technology, we can ultimately really do something very different and efficient for public transit to be able to efficiently get people from one part of, South Florida, or suburbs of Fort Lauderdale to the downtown so they can work and come back. And ultimately, hopefully that would,
because there's definitely an east-west issue in Broward. I live all the way out west, and sometimes I'm like, no, I'm not going because no,
my office is on 3rd Avenue. It's like 4 blocks south of downtown. I don't, when it comes to lunch, I'm going down to 17th Street, or I'm going down to, it's like, I'm born and raised here. I love downtown, but sometimes I even avoid being down there because, it just takes time. It takes time. It's, it's hard to find parking, got to pay for parking, et cetera.
And it's expensive. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm with you on that, and I'm not far away. So, the commute from out west, if we can make that, ultimately, I know the city wants to be a center for, an attractive place for big corporations to come here and bring their headquarters here. Ultimately, the downtown, it will provide more jobs downtown, more jobs for the surrounding community. And I think those are great things. But I think when you have big companies look at what we have here in Fort Lauderdale so far, we're on the right track, but I don't think we're quite there yet to to be the destination for like a large financial pick up their HQ in West Palm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, because you talked about housing, we talked about the flood and what they're going to do about that, the traffic situation. So those were your top issues. Those are definitely issues of concern in the city of Fort Lauderdale. I know you guys done a couple different panels and I listened in on it, and it seems to be a good thing. And the last thing I want to talk about is that some of the things that you talked about is more specific for your District 4, but there's some things that Fort Lauderdale as a city is going to need. How are you going to be able to work with the other people on the commission to do what's best for Fort Lauderdale overall?
I think that, look, as a commissioner, we obviously represent our own district, but at the same time, we do have a vote on the agenda for the whole city. So we don't all just vote on whatever happens in our district. We're voting on District 1, District 2, District 3, including our own district, and the mayor has a vote as well. So I think when you look at somebody like me who's born and raised in this city, I mean, this is my home. I went to school in Tallahassee at Florida State. Don't hold it against me.
I am. You're talking to a member of the nation here.
Give me a chance, please. Give me a chance. So, but look, I went to school in Tallahassee. I absolutely loved Tallahassee, but I came back home. I had the option to work wherever I wanted to, and I came back home, and I love this city. My family's here. I have family that live in District 4, I have family that live in District 1. We live and work and play in pretty much every part of this city. And so it's all important to me. It all matters because I have, I've got relationships all around this city. And I think there's so many unique places and unique things to do and so many great people all around this city that it would be impossible for me to not make decisions that would be, that would not be in the best interest of the entire city. Right. And so it's not just about District 4 or any district in particular. I would love, ultimately my goal is that we have a commission that can and hopefully will work together. And I think that, when I look at who we have on the commission right now, I mean, we've got Mayor Chantalis and we have Commissioner Glassman. Two people who I really look forward to working with, two people I think I can work very, very well with. I think we've got great candidates in District 3. I think we've got great candidates in District 1. And frankly, I really look forward to working with any of them. So I've always been that type of person. I'm always going to be that type of person. And, and it's never an I or a me mentality. It's always a we mentality. It's always about how can we as a team accomplish what we want to accomplish for the betterment of this city. And, it's, the other thing is too, I would love for the different districts and the different areas of Fort Lauderdale to be more involved with each other. Right. And so, granted, if we live in District 4 or we live in District 2 or we live in District 3, I want the District 3 to be involved in the community with District 4, with District 1 or 2 and 1. I mean, I don't care which districts are which, but I think having more inclusion, having more, being more open to the entire city, doing things together and enjoying the city together and welcoming each other into their part, where they live in their district. Look, I think community, it just makes it that much better. And that's the type of person I am.
Because you're part of a whole, right?
A whole city.
Exactly.
All of you make a whole. So you're part of a whole. So it's important that you are, engaged and involved in each other's city.
Exactly. And it would be inappropriate of me not to recognize and mention the other commissioners besides, Commissioner Glassman, Commissioner Sorensen, whose seat I'm running for in District 4. But we've got Commissioner Moritis and Commissioner McKenzie, and I think Commissioner McKenzie has done phenomenal things. In District 3. And I think that he's done a really wonderful job of trying to bring different districts that are in East Fort Lauderdale with West Fort Lauderdale. And so actually, frankly, I'm excited for Commissioner McKenzie to take the step to the county commission. Because the other thing here too is it's not just the commissioners in Fort Lauderdale working together, but we get a lot more things done when we can work with the county. Mm-hmm. So with a guy like, with somebody like Commissioner McKenzie in the county, having a relationship there, I think that, his heart's in this city too. And I'm hoping that, we can absolutely work with, with him and improve our relationship as a city with the county, and work more together. And I think that only just benefits all the, all the people that live in, in these communities.
All right. Thank you. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. So tell folks how they can get in touch with you. I don't know if you need campaign contribution or volunteers to help you out on these those 10 days of early voting and on election day. So tell people how they can get in touch with you, if they can volunteer, donate, and all your social media handles.
Sure, absolutely. Well, my website's pretty simple. My website's simple. My last name's not, but my website is MikeLambrechts.com. It's MikeLambrechts. I got a Facebook. It's basically it's Mike Lambrechts for Fort Lauderdale City Commission District 4. We have an Instagram with a similar handle. And anybody that watches this and has any more questions for me, they can reach me at mike@mikelambrechts.com. This is also available to anybody that wants to contact it. My phone number is 954-830-0133. I welcome anybody to text me, call me, any questions, comments, anything that they want to talk more about. I'm an open book, and this is part of the job. So I'm looking forward to hearing from folks.
I love when you give out their numbers.
That's awesome. And I'm really happy to hear that you think that you know that the infrastructure bill is extremely important, and that and even if the leadership in Tallahassee don't want to go get it, the people in Fort Lauderdale and Broward County is hollering at the federal government to tell them to bring those monies down. Because I did some traveling through the South this summer, and I mean, the roads and the bridges and all that's a real thing. And that's an absolute real thing that that needs to be dealt with. So,
and I appreciate you highlighting the Sadowski Fund, because that is also the Floridian
the taxpayers' money to help money in the state.
This is the time that we need to use it the most. And so I'm glad that we do have a candidate who recognizes that. And has that part of their purview, and that's something that they really want to address and tack on. So that's important. So we appreciate your time, sir.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. I'm grateful to be on this show, and grateful for the invite and for your time, and look forward to doing great things in this community and earning everybody's vote.
All right. Remember, the last day to vote is November 8th. However, early voting is October 24th to November 6th. Last day to register to vote is November 11th. Last day to
request your vote by mail.
Vote by mail is October 28th. Please, Mr. I don't want to mess up your last name.
Lambrechts
is on the ballot in November. So make sure you go
and Fort Lauderdale Commission seat 4.
Fort Lauderdale Commission seat 4. Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Look forward to connecting again soon and meeting you in person.
Absolutely. Good luck.
All right. Thank you very much.
Bye. All right.
Yeah,
those are the issues: housing, infrastructure, and traffic. So we all kind of work together. You know what I'm saying? So
and those are issues that affect your everyday lives.
Everybody. Infrastructure is important.
That affect your everyday lives. Yeah. So this is why it's important to have these candidates on, and so you can hear what their perspective is and what they're planning to do for the city they live in. So great interview.
So he explained it. We got it all done, and so no need to not too much of a recap, because those issues were pretty straightforward, and
Absolutely.
We're feeling all of them. All of them.
Hey, listen, look out for us on Wednesday. Okay,
we're doing something special announcements.
So check us out on Instagram. If you don't follow us, I suggest you go on and do so.
Go follow us, and then we'll post it on Facebook, so y'all can come and start following us on Instagram.
So our Instagram page is the same name. So all you got to look up is Race and the Racist. You'll find us. Join us Wednesday. We're gonna be in it. So
everybody gonna be home because everything's shutting down tomorrow.
Ain't nobody kids are home. So those of you who have family members in Tampa, check on your peoples. Be ready to provide, service, whatever they need. We're gonna pray for our families up there and on that side. Hopefully that we'll pray that the hurricane just glazes over. That's what we're hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll look forward to talking to you.
And I think it's in Cuba now, so pray for your people and the people in Cuba. I think it hit landfall in Cuba either earlier today. It may still be there and moving forward. So
we do have another candidate on the 29th, so we hope that you'll join us then.
Oh, yeah, Thursday, yeah.
Yes, Thursday. So please come and join us on Thursday. We did post that flyer on our
We have the regular show tomorrow, right?
We do. We do have a regular show. But we got different things going on tomorrow.
Yes.
So we'll see how that is.
Alrighty.
So we're praying for everyone's safety. Hey, Nico. We look forward to talking to you guys again. And be safe, be careful. And we'll see you on the flip side, on the other side.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Bye.